very spiritual journey for us. You know, it's a huge statement and a huge honour to our forefathers. Here we are, thousands and thousands of years later, still doing at least a fraction of what they ever achieved.
Kia ora tātou. Tuatahi mihi nei ki tō tātou whare ki ngā tūpuna o tēnei rohe. Ka titiro ake ki enei whakaahua o tātou Waka. Ka whakaaro ake kia tama te kapua kia ngā toroirangi. Ki o tātou tūpuna I kaha whakatere nei o tātou Waka tūpuna ki Aotearoa nei. Hoi anō I roto I era whakaaro ka mihi atu ki o tātou tini aitua ngā tini mate kua tangihia ki o tātou marae. Kei runga nei a tātou I tēnei wā, haere atu rā, haere atu rā, haere atu rā. Me mihi nei hoki kia koe te matua. Me te ko te ngākau kei konei te tehi kanohi pakeke hei arahi I a tātou I roto I nei āhuatanga. Hoki noa nei kia koe rongo pai, kua roa te wā, I a tāua tamaiti tupu ake ana I roto I te kōhanga reo, I roto o kirikiri roa. Tai anō nei kia koutou I ngā tuahine noho mai nei. E kaha aki nei I a tātou kaupapa ki mui te aroaro o te hunga e mātakitaki nei. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. He mihi hoki kia manu. Ko ia te tehi o ngā ringa poi, whakatupu, tiaki, manaki, I a mau tamariki, me taku mokopuna. Mihi hoki nei ki taku hoa, kua haere tahi mai nei ki te tautoko I te kaupapa I tātou nei. Tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. Thanks for having me here. Last night was really great. This is a cool kind of conference to come to when you can sort of just sit down and watch everybody have a good time and enjoy yourselves. And I don't mind coming back to any more conferences like that. It's pretty good fun seeing everybody just chilling out. So today it's just really a great honour. I'd just like to thank Linda for having us here on behalf of my wife and myself. But I just really wanted to thank Manu especially because, as she said, she's looked after, our one daughter, she's 20 now, and Manu's looked after ever since pretty much she was born, and she's away working as a lifeguard in Florida, in Orlando at the moment. So I was taking lots of pictures of Manu on the stage last night and firing them off to her on Messenger. Yeah. And all she texted back and said, "Who's that?" But it's great. It's really great to be here. And I suppose today, and if you have a look up at the title of my quarter, all I've got is some pictures and things to talk about with you. But you'd think that Manu and I had collaborated, because I sort of addressed what I was going to talk about today around myth, legend, and reality. So what are the things that we think about or we picture when we do some of this Waka stuff, or when people think about us doing this Waka stuff? Because for me and for my children and for all the people that do this kind of stuff with me, it is a reality. But for everybody else who only hears about it, or has only maybe watched the Moana movie, or listened to stories or read storybooks of our tupuna travelling across the ocean, it occupies those first two parts of what I've put up there, myth and legend. And so one of the things that I've been very, very focused on is to change everybody's realities around those kinds of things. And so one time we were sailing our Waka down the east coast, and this is about 2 years ago, and we were really fortunate because we had a full moon. It was just setting behind that mountain over there that you can see on this picture, and the sun was just starting to rise. And the reason that I value this picture immensely is because that's hikurangi maunga. And in all the stories that talk of Maui, who I don't ever, I don't say Maui legendary god in the same sentence usually. Usually I say Maui, my ancestor. And so this is a picture that sort of talks about the whakapapa of our history, our knowledge, and our reality as not just Māori people, but for a lot of people from the Pacific as well, because Maui was this famous ancestor of ours who did all these great things. That travelled around, that discovered new land and pulled fish out of the ocean, which was really land. So we think about these things, and I look at hikurangi, those are the images that these kinds of features of our landscape conjure up for me. I don't sit there and go, oh, look at that beautiful mountain. I look at that mountain and go, that's one of the first things that Maui saw when he fished up this land. And when I see the glittering snow on the slopes of Ruapehu, I don't look at it and go, well, look at that really cool ski field. I look at it and go, those were the scales of the fish that Maui saw when he pulled that out of the ocean. And so suddenly all those kinds of stories that talk about those people that are a part of us are the things that we should be thinking about when we change our realities. That the stories about people like Maui, people like Tāwhaki, all those people that have been relegated to storybooks for our children need to be rethought about. And once you understand the language that's required to decode those kinds of stories, then the realities come through. So we don't have these kinds of images to frame our thinking anymore, like the one I'm going to show you next. Okay, this is famous. This is actually called the Māoris arriving in New Zealand. And if you have a look at it, there's a whole bunch of people looking like they're starving to death and in desperate condition and everything else. And then they suddenly see a cloud on the horizon, and that's Aotearoa. And their sails are all torn and broken and all that. I'll show you what really happened. This is a picture of us arriving in Rarotonga in 2015. There you go. Nice and calm. Everybody's happy. Some people put on weight. But and then once you start sitting down and thinking about all this stuff, you can understand how easily the stories of our tupuna can be played with. So that, I'm actually involved at the moment with organising the New Zealand Festival for next year down in Wellington, and we've pushed a Waka-based kaupapa around our ancestor kupe. Because I'm kind of tired of people not really understanding the knowledge that these great people had. So the festival was really courageous and said, yeah, let's do a Waka festival. So we're going to do this in Wellington next year. So if any of you are around, come down and visit the canoes. There'll be navigators and things there. But I think the big thing for us is to try and make this kind of knowledge mainstream. You know, to give you an example, if we think about that picture that we saw before, the reality of something like that is sort of so far removed, that kind of image is so far removed from reality, it's not funny. To give you an idea of why I say that is that, you know, we've sailed from the Cook Islands back to Aotearoa a few times now on a Waka. The longest time it's taken me is 21 days, and the quickest time we've done it in is 11 days. And if you think about it, even if you took food that had lasted you for only a week or something like that, there's no way you're going to look like those people look like. You know, if you think about it, all those people who are on that Waka with their ribs like showing through and all that kind of stuff, that's actually not a reality. And the other thing that people have to understand too, that these kinds of voyages take place, it's not as if there's some people sitting on the beach one day and say, let's jump on our canoe and go to New Zealand. You know, that there's actually quite a lot of planning and knowledge that goes into doing a voyage like that. It's not just a bunch of people deciding, oh, let's go and see what we can do. And so when I've been trying to get support for the festival, what I've been saying to people is that we talk about these feats of our ancestors as if it's these very dangerous, scary, last-minute things that they decided to do. But when we look at stories from the classic stories from Europe, the Mediterranean, all around there, they talk about all these people as heroes who've travelled around on their ships all around those places. And when it comes down to our people, it's these dangerous people who jumped on these canoes and just sailed off into the ocean, risking their lives. But if you understand the stuff that's required to do this, it's a calculated risk. It's a calculated risk that we need to do to relearn all this stuff. So that's us. There was 5 canoes that sailed into the Cook Islands in 2015. But if we talk about whakapapa, one of the things that we have to think about here in Aotearoa is the kinds of waka that we see now, which is mostly waka like these, right? So whenever I talk to some of my kaumātua at home and I say, or they'll ask me, boy, where have you been? And I'll go, we just sailed a waka from here to San Francisco, like in that film you saw. And they'll say stuff like, wow, that was a long way to paddle. And that's because of these kinds of pictures. And these are the kinds of images that we have. You know, when people say to me, we heard you went on a waka to the Cook Islands. I said, yeah, come and have a look at it. And they'll come down, because we keep our wakas at the Maritime Museum in Auckland, and they'll come and look at it, and they're absolutely shocked because they think we went on a waka like this. Honestly, they do. And I say to them, look, there's no place to sleep, there's no place for food, no place to store water, there's nothing. And then slowly it becomes an educational process. And so I guess that's part of what I'm here to do with you guys, is to give you these kinds of insights, so that as time goes on, and you might be interested, because in 2019 there's a big event in New Zealand that we've kind of said, we want to be a part of it, but we want to be a part of it with waka kaupapa. And as a part of that now, Ministry of Culture and Heritage is talking to us and saying, well, what kind of curriculum can you come up with waka for that event? And so that's why I'm really happy to be here, because maybe there's some of you that will want to have a talk about what kind of waka curriculum can be created that's not just for that event, but forever here in Aotearoa, so that waka doesn't remain in that realm of myth and legend, but becomes a reality for all our kids. You know, I remember sailing from Kawhia to Porirua, and there were kaumātua, and I'm telling you these stories just so that you understand that it's not a non-Māori view, but we sailed in, kaumātua actually standing on the beach we sailed in and parked at the beach, and they came over and said, "Where did you guys just come from?" And we said, "Kawhia." And then they said, "How long did it take you guys to paddle that far?" You know, so those are the ingrained images that all of us have to work to change. We all have to work to change those things. So that whenever we talk about voyages or travels of our tupuna across the ocean, we're going to have images like these that I'm going to bring up now. Canoes with sails. Canoes that can carry people, they can carry food, they can carry water, they can carry the kinds of things you need to settle in a new place. And so there's lots of stories out there of all our tupuna that said, and they'd have chickens and pigs and dogs, different kinds of plants and everything that they travelled around the Pacific to create new communities. And these are the kinds of stories that we need to work hard on sharing and working with our rangatahi. And I mean all our rangatahi of Aotearoa. Not just the Māori kids or not just the Pacifica kids. I mean everybody. Because this is a real part of our history. And so these are some of the canoes that I work with. And Haunui is the big waka that you see sort of flying out of the waves there. That's a waka that we've sailed from here to that trailer for that documentary that I just played at the start. We sailed from Aotearoa to a little island called Whakarava, which is a little bit north of Tahiti. Then we sailed to the Marquesas, up to the Hawaiian Islands and sailed all through those islands, then across to San Francisco, down to Mexico, Costa Rica, the Galapagos Islands, back to Tahiti. They went through all those islands, Huahine, Raiatea, Bora Bora. They went to Aitutaki, Rarotonga, up to Samoa, then across to Fiji, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, New Caledonia, and back to New Zealand. And really we did that not to really reinvigorate a new generation of sailors, to give us the opportunity to start teaching new navigators to do this job. And I don't know if you caught it, but in that short video clip that I played at the start, there was one image of a guy kneeling on the ground and he was being presented with a lane. What had happened was that he'd completed his navigator training, but had missed out on his receiving of the awards from all the different navigators, and there was a shot of that. So part of what we're doing, as well as recovering the knowledge, is going through all the processes of honouring those people who make it to these positions. If we go on, I can't do a talk without talking about these two guys here. The man at the top, his name is Mau Piailug. He's a navigator from a small island called Satawal up in Micronesia. It's a very small island. I think it's about 2 kilometres long and about 3 kilometres long and 2 kilometres wide. It's very small. There's hundreds of people who live there. And he was one of the last remaining navigators on that island who hung on strongly to the teachings of his grandfather. Now on that island, a navigator actually wielded great community power because the island's so small that resourcing a community required that a navigator would take little fleets of canoes and sail off over the horizon to different locations, gather food and bring it back to feed their people. So as a navigator, you're actually quite powerful. The big change in their land was that as more and more islands in Micronesia became part of the territory of Micronesia, which belongs to the United States, is that colonial sort of framed thinking started to say, look, that's pretty dangerous what you guys do. You know, you guys getting on your canoes and sailing off to that island to get fish and sailing off to that island to get birds and whatever to feed your community, what we'll do is that every 2 or 3 months we'll send a ship around and they can drop off rice and corned beef and cans of sardines and flour and sugar and all that kind of stuff. So you don't need to go and do that sort of stuff anymore. But guess what that does? It makes everyone become lazy and not want to learn all of the stuff that takes years and years to learn. And so what happened on that island is that fewer and fewer people wanted to learn what he did. But everybody wanted to acquire all this other stuff, which was easy because they just wait for the boat to turn up. What happened was that Hawaiians had heard about him. And in 1976, they invited him to come up to their islands and navigate a canoe from Hawaii to Tahiti on an ancient trip route that hadn't been done for something like 800 years. So he agreed. He went up and he navigated this canoe from Hawaii to Tahiti just by looking at the stars and stuff. And from that point on, the Hawaiians just loved him, fell in love with him, and he started teaching them how to become navigators. And then from then, there's this whakapapa of navigators in the Pacific that come from him, Mau Piailug. He passed away in 2010. But there's a whole string of navigation schools around the Pacific now that owe their existence or in their creation to this man. I remember sitting with him one time in Hawaii, and I asked him, you know, when you sail down to Tahiti, because if you understand the map of the Pacific, Micronesia is way over on one side, and Hawaii is way over on the other side. They're thousands and thousands of miles apart. And I said to him one time, hey, you know, when you sailed that canoe down to Tahiti back in 1976, how many times had you done that before? He goes, oh, no times. That was his answer, no times. And I said, well, how come you knew how to do that then? And he said, oh, my grandfather told me. And then I said, well, when did your grandfather go to Hawaii? Because I thought you guys have been living on your island, you know, ever since. And he said, oh, his grandfather told him. And then as we started to slowly get into this conversation about his knowledge, he's operating on this knowledge that's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old that had just been, he told that guy, and that guy told that guy, that guy told that guy, and then that guy told him. And then he told us. And it's, he's the kind of guy that we'd go, hey, hang on, we're going to write down what you just said. And he'd go, no good. Here, keep it here. And we go, no, we get paper, look, and we'll write it down. And he'll go, no, no good. Wouldn't come, paper walked away. That's how he would talk to us. And so he would always test us to make sure that we knew and remembered everything that he told us. Consistently, over and over and over again, until we got the same story as him. And so down there, that's a picture of us, of when we went sailing one time with him, sitting up on that platform, navigator's platform on a canoe, Makali'i, and my good friend, Captain Clay Bertelman, who I did a lot of sailing with. And he's the one who kept encouraging me to keep doing what we're doing and hang out with Mo as much as possible. And so we travel to Hawaii all the time. And I take groups of young rangata who actually, most of them are actually teachers now. But so for the last maybe 20 years or so, we'd been taking young people up there, mainly because we didn't have our own canoe in Aotearoa to use. But since we've got our own canoe now, we do a lot of that stuff with our rangatahi here in Aotearoa. That's why Mani was getting all worried yesterday, because I was actually out sailing. And then I sent her a picture in the morning because we had this really beautiful sunrise. And I sent it to her and said, look at this sunrise. And I thought that was a bad move because she'll probably be sitting there worrying. And sure enough, she spent most of the day freaking out that I wouldn't turn up today or get here in time to do our kōrero. But so we do that now with our kids. And our whole philosophy, I guess, is for them to understand the importance of waka as a tool for learning, as a tool for recovering the kōrero of our tupuna, and as a tool to put education into some kind of context for our children. You know, I've taken kids out sailing and I go to them, right, get your books out and we're going to do some maths now. And they'll go, oh, what do we have to do that for? Our tupuna didn't do maths. I said, no, we're going to do some maths. And actually today I just got a message from a bunch of them because they all got off the Waka and they're all out doing some science stuff out on the beach while I'm talking to you now. But for a long time, we had to work hard on showing the connection between maths, science, engineering, physics, biology, all that kind of stuff with the things that their tupuna did. Because, you know, the first time that we tried doing it, the kids were going, our tupuna didn't do maths, or our tupuna weren't engineers, or our tupuna weren't accountants and stuff like that. I go, yes, they were. You know, you had to keep track of how much fishing had been done in a certain place. You had to keep track of how many trees are left to build new canoes, all that kind of stuff. So you actually have to think about all those things, and slowly we got them into understanding that stuff like math, science, and everything else in those worlds aren't just Western concepts. And the Waka is a great vehicle for doing that. And so these are just some pictures of my kids that Manu knows. So that's Noino, that's the one who's 20 now up on the mast there. She was like 6 and a rope got stuck at the top of the mast about, I don't know, 10 or 12 metres up. And I said, and because ever since they've been small, my kids know how to tie lines and all those kinds of things. And we're just standing around. I said, hey, look, that rope's stuck. And then she goes, I'll go up. So we just tie her up, and then we just pulled her up to the top of the mast, and then she's up there doing all the work up there, and then let her down. And then there is her brother, Tūranga, when he was, I think he was 9 then, steering Te Aurere, our kaumātua Hector Busby's Waka. And then the next picture of him when he was 15 and we test sailed a canoe from Samoa to New Zealand. If we keep on going, then these are all the kids that come and do stuff with us. But one of the things that I want to try and emphasise also is that even though we push hard to do all our kaupapa out on the ocean and try to recover all that knowledge, we don't do it to the detriment of all our other waka kaupapa here at home. And so, especially here in the bottom picture where we see those 2 guys paddling a waka, those are my 2 sons, because for years, waka hurdle racing had disappeared from the Waikato River. And the last time they had a race was about 1992 when I taught someone how to do it, and then we did an exhibition race with some people. And so I taught my boys how to do it, and they brought it back and did exhibitions on how to do this stuff with some of their friends last year. So it's a recovery of all aspects of waka that's important for me. And I think if we talk about and you think about that kind of stuff with the things that you do, we should have a talk sometime. Some of us should have a talk and figure out what we can do. Because if there's any of you that have got schools in Tamaki, because we do programs with the Maritime Museum, and like I said, we've got these kids now out with us doing science stuff, even though it's the school holidays. Because my belief is that, and I keep telling kids who do that whenever they come to do stuff with me, I say to them, school starts when you open your eyes, and it finishes when you shut them. So every time I'm going to you guys, wake up, we're going to do something, school started. And so kids who come and hang around with me always kind of expect that somewhere, somehow, when they're hanging around with me, they're going to learn something. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be like navigation. It could be something like, how do you tie this properly? Or how do you look after that person? You know, everything's a learning experience. Because I guess one of the big concepts that I try to talk to all our people that come sailing with us is that when we sail from point A to point B, when we get off the waka, we want everybody to still want to get back on the waka, not to get off the waka and go, I'm out of here, that was terrible. You know, I don't feel a part of that crew. I don't feel a part of that whānau. So it's trying to make those things happen. And so we like to do it in a way that the kids always want to come back. They always want to come back. People laugh about me because I'm actually not too bad on social media, and the reason for that is that that's the best way for all these teenagers that have done stuff with me to keep in touch with me. They always send me messages and going, Matua, is there any space on the trip this time? I'm going, well, no. But keep in touch, or come and do something. There's some other mahi going on, come and help. And so they'll actually come outside of their own, in their own time to come and do this kind of stuff once they've had that experience. And once they understand that school or learning happens all the time. I keep telling them that's for me too. Every time we go and do something, I go, oh, I didn't know that one. We'll try that next time. And we'll try and repeat those kinds of things. And then it's fun. I think that's the other thing, is that it's lots of fun. It's good fun. And, every time we take pictures of kids doing stuff with us on our waka, they're having a great time. They're learning stuff, having a great time, and forgetting about other stuff. Because when they come sailing with me, I ban their phones and a whole pile of other stuff, ban MP3 players. If they want to create noise, they either have to sing songs or talk to each other. And so the waka is a great vehicle for creating those kinds of spaces, because they've got no other choice but to do those kinds of things. And so, for me, that's my grandson. So right from an early age, he's there doing the stuff with his cousins, his uncles, his aunties, and all that. And all his little mates will come along too and do stuff. So he's just on there. He had a little bit of sandpaper going for it, but then when we finished and we varnished that piece of that carving and put it up on the side of the waka, he always talks about it. He always talks about the work that he did on that waka. And he likes coming and sailing on it too. He'll get mad if he knows that I'm out sailing and I haven't sort of taken him off school to come sailing with me. But it's the kind of thing that keeps us going. And as I said, I've got a bunch of rangatahi out there on the waka now, doing some mahi until tomorrow. So after our kōrero today, I'm going to head back up to Tāmaki and jump back on the waka with them. But ahakoa, he iti taku iti, he kore au e ngaro, he kākano I rui a mai I rangi Atea, talks about, no matter how insignificant we all are, we descended from some of the greatest seeds that ever were sown across the Pacific. So on behalf of my wife and I, thanks for having us. It's been good to be here, and maybe we'll get a chance to have a bit of a kōrero sometime and everything, but otherwise, mihi nei kia tātou, kia koe te matua, huri no nei tō tātou whare, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Kia ora tātou.
The Pacific Ocean is the lifeblood of our people. It's our home. Casting off on a 2-year adventure, carrying the message of just how precious our ocean is to us. Reviving the wayfinding brilliance of our ancestors and raising a new generation to become stewards for our ocean.
There'll be people out there who look at it and say, what are these crazy people up to? But these are some of the first steps that we're taking to revive the knowledge that allows us to live in harmony and live in sync with our environment.
The hardest part is to make everyone see what we see. And once we can make that happen, I think we have a chance.